Hey Acers, glad to see you again, and welcome all you old and new Acers to the Ace Role Playing Games official channel. My name is Mason Emerson. I'm your host, and I am the founder of the system that allows you to set up your own role playing game club wherever you're at and to help that club become something that will be a force for good in your area, to give you guys a chance to create a story together and to share and spend time together that in turn builds friendships that last lifetimes. So, as we say here at Ace Role Playing Games, which ACE stands for Achieve, Create, and Entertain, we say here that we're gaming for good. So, it's good to see you all again. And I'm going to kind of touch on what I've been doing this week. Gaming wise, I didn't do too much because I have been sick as a dog for the last almost 2 weeks. It started like Tuesday or Wednesday right before New Year's, and I'd had a cold before Christmas. And I thought I was over it on Christmas Eve, so we were fine. We didn't really have any problems, but something was still lurking, and oh man. The Tuesday or Wednesday before New Year's Eve, I got hit hard. I was so hard hit that it actually did put me in bed, and I slept for so many days and pretty much had a pretty crappy New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And a week ago today, gosh, my head was just, all the way out of my face and everything like that. And only recently did I not stop blowing out things that look like a Jackson Pollock Jr. or a Jackson Pollock kind of painting. Ugh. It was pretty gross. Those golds and bloods and reds and yuck. It was pretty nasty. And on the gross but cool part, I use a Neomed thing to squirt out my nostrils, and it knocks loose some of the nastiest crap I've ever seen come out of my head. Ugh. But my sleep doctor has me on that. So anyway, and now that gross part's over, so I guess there should have been a gross warning there, but I didn't do so. Sorry. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about races in Savage Worlds. Now, by race, which it shouldn't be a triggering word, but some people get triggered by it. By race, I mean that the species of being that you're portraying as a character. So, the Savage Worlds book lists several stock races. See, there's a little bit of the cough left. Anyway, excuse me. So, Savage Worlds lists several stock races that might show up in science fiction or fantasy. And then it also gives you guidelines for making races before it gives you like the final celestials and things like that. Now, one of the things that when you're reading your copy of Savage Worlds, and races show up on page 12, they are listed in there in such a way that you can use them as they are, or you can modify them to fit whatever you're running. But you want to try and keep the balance there. So the idea is that every race starts with a +2 ability of some sort. And if you have to go further, then you balance that out by taking minus abilities. So here's an example of the android. Now the android, I wonder if I'm going to have to start seeing if there's ways I can capture some of this by do some scrolling and stuff. But anyway, the android, semi-organic being kind of thing or whatever, it can have whatever stats you need it to have. But its first racial hindrance, its first racial negative ability is pacifist major. So if I go over to making races, That is on the second page, or the third page of it, which are the negative racial traits. And that is a hindrance. And it's, in this case, a major hindrance, so it's worth -2. So that means that this android now has -4 points. Now, they based the idea of the pacifist on the fact that most androids have what are called the Asimov circuits in it, which are based on Isaac Asimov's law of robotics, 3 laws of robotics. Now, according to the Wikipedia article on that, the rules were introduced in 1942 in a short story called Runaround, which is included in his 1950 collection I, Robot, which is a good story. It's one of my favorites. It's really well done and really fun to watch. Now, they have a positronic brain, which I won't go into here, but the laws are this. First law: a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. So in this case, pacifist major would also be expanded to include a sentient being or sapient being. So sapient beings are the ones that they are probably specifying. Second law: a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. So you can't send a robot to assassinate somebody. And the third law is a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the second or first law, or the first or second laws. So he does introduce later on a 0th law, which precedes all others, that is a robot may not harm humanity or by inaction allow humanity to come to harm. So sometimes they will let people die if it's for the good of humanity. And they have great processing brains and things like that. So that's why pacifism is a racial hindrance. Another racial hindrance is outsider. And that's at a major, because people don't trust androids. So that is another -2. So that's the first -2 takes them to 0. The second -2 takes them to -2. And the third -2 takes them, which is a major vowel, because their constructs are designed with a particular purpose. And that's what your directives are in your programming. So with all those minuses, with 6 points of minus, that allows you to get, and this is over in the Making Races again. Making Races is starting on page 18. What that allows you to do is to buy an 8-point. It's 8 points. So 2 points come from just the character, the creation. 2 points come from the vow. 2 points come from the pacifism, and so 2 points for just being, 2 points for pacifism, 2 points for the vow, and 2 points for the outsider. So with those 6 points added on to the initial 2 points, it gives you 8 points, which allows you to buy the 8-point thing of being a construct. So construct is the racial bonus. And that means that the androids add +2 to recover from being shaken. They don't breathe. They ignore 1 level of wound modifiers. They're immune to poison and disease. But they cannot heal naturally. So it's kind of there's a negative side to it. And healing requires the repair skill, which takes 1 hour per current wound level per attempt. But because they're constructs, they're not limited to the golden hour. Now, I'm going to pause here and explain the concept of the golden hour. And the golden hour, which is on page 96. So I'm going to jump to that real quick. The golden hour is is as follows from the rule book on page 96. Patients who survive their initial trauma have about an hour to survive most life-threatening injuries. So that's the time period in which you need to receive medical attention. And this is true to life. The longer the wait, however, the more likely the wounds are to be fatal. They extend that concept into healing in general. So basically, if the first healing attempt with the healing skill doesn't work, then it takes magical healing or superpowered healing or whatever, and then you have to heal naturally, and that takes time. So that's actually a real concept from real life, is that in that first hour after the injury, you want to try to make it so the person who gets injured gets seen almost immediately. So that is kind of the concept that you're rolling with. So that's an example of a deep dive into a race. Now, I like androids. I like the way that they've coded them in here and set them up. I might, if I'm making a combat droid, I might try to make the combat droid into... I might try to make the combat droid with something else, because I'd have to put something else other than pacifism in there. So that might be something I'd tweak or run around with. There are Aquarians, so guys like Aquaman and Namor the Submariner, who could be pretty cool. But they also have a dependency on being in water. Avians, they can't swim because of their big bulky wings, and they kind of are awkward on land. But when they're flying, like Hawkman and Hawkgirl, they can really do some pretty good stuff. You got your classic dwarves and elves, half folk, because we don't want to get sued. Humans, which are the most common, and they have the 2-point trait of adaptable, which is why when you create a human character, you get your free edge, your free novice edge. So that's really what's going on with humans, is that they have a racial ability too. And there's Rakashans and Saurians also. Now, here's the thing. Maybe you want to use these racial creation tables to also make cultural creation. So, if you're dealing with, let's say, the Mongols, they might even start with a free D4, not only in fighting. Maybe they start with a D6 in fighting. And they also start with a free D4 in writing. But maybe they don't have one of the other skills or something. Maybe there's a negative racial trait. There's an attribute penalty or a skill penalty, reduce core skills. And then, those are the kind of things that you can look at. So that's really what I kind of wanted to touch on here. Otherwise, if you're in the South Jordan area, South Jordan, Utah, the United States, if you're here, come on in and play with us on Tuesday from 6 to 9. So Tuesday night from 6 to 9 at Mythos Games in South Jordan, Utah. And Scott will be glad to have you come in. And then for those of you who are 16 and up, we do have the grown-up game that's going to be run next week, Thursday. So not this coming Thursday, but the next week, Thursday, on the 19th. I'm going to be running Harvey's Heroes. And that's going to be a blast. So those are the characteristics of how race works in Savage Worlds. And I recommend that you go in and play with things around there like that. But at the same time, also remember that human is the base for a reason. And if you just decide to get some certain hindrances and edges, you can easily make your character into somebody you want them to be. So, for example, say you want to play a Star Trek game and you want to play a Vulcan. Vulcan works like this: you start with a human, because Vulcans and humans really physically aren't that much different. And some people can argue and say, well, but they're stronger. They're physically stronger. Okay, if they are, then just spend 2 of your hindrance points and start with a d6 in your strength. But then they're also more logical. Okay, use your other 2 hindrance points and take your smarts to. So you start with d6s in strength and smarts. So how do you get those points? Again, it's with hindrances, which we'll talk about next time. But what if you take arrogant and driven at major levels? There you go. 4 points of hindrance used to raise your smarts and your used to raise your smarts and your strength. Or what if instead of arrogant, we took driven, because represents the logic side of them, and you also took quirk, minor, and that is not showing emotion, and maybe pacifist, minor. There's all sorts of ways you could make a Star Trek Vulcan. But if you guys are trying to make them as a race, that would make them the way you would do it. Because really, there is not much of a difference physiologically. I mean, you can say, yeah, but what about the pointed ears? That's just a cosmetic thing. So those are the things that you can learn about creating races. So there's an example of Emily creating angels and celestials and guardians and stuff like that. So that's in the book up through page 21. So next time we're going to start on page 22 if you're following along in the book, and that'll be with hindrances. And hindrances are really what make characters tick. So that's what I have for you today. I hope you're all doing well. I want you to know that I do love you and that you are important and valuable. There is nobody better at being you than you. And other people may seem to have it great and wonderful, especially if you're looking at their social media posts and everything like that. But the truth is, you're exactly where you need to be with exactly who you need to be there with. And you are going to do exactly what you're going to do because of your background and your learning and your understanding. So take some time, work on in your time on trying to be curious about you and who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it. Like, I just scratched my inside of my ear. Why did I do that? Well, because my ear itched. And I could ignore that. I could sit here and let it itch and itch and itch and just ignore it. Or I could just, I didn't even think about it when I stuck my finger up there and just started scratching. So that's examples of ways that you just kind of sometimes have to be who you are, when you are, and where you are. So also I want to run this list by you real quick of the 5 rules for ACE. We're going to revisit these. The 5 rules for ACE are: first, respect the fun of everyone at the table and respect them as people. 2, no adult topics or themes. If anything adult happens, anything of a sexual nature, anything like that, it should be happening off screen. or even not talked about at all, because we avoid adult topics and themes. 3, come ready to play. So be healthy. So if you're not feeling well, don't come. We can get on without you, and we'll just use your character as an allied non-player character. You come in the right mindset. If you had a really bad day at school and are coming to defrag, that's fine. But if you had a really bad day at school and you're going to come and take it out on everybody else at the table, that's not respecting the fun of the other players, and that is making things worse for them. So come with the right mindset, and come with your tools. If you're gaming in person, come with your dice and your character sheet and all that other kind of stuff. But if you're playing online, then just make sure you have your computer all set up, that you have your workstation area set up, that you're ready to go. 4, bring up any issues or violations of the rules with either your game master, who will then bring it to the sponsor, or the sponsor themselves. Because every ACE role-playing game club has a sponsor. I'm the sponsor of the very first one. And the sponsor's job is to make sure that the rules are being followed and to take care of the problem of removing children who cannot follow and will not follow the rules. We would hope all of you would follow the rules. And rule 5 is the game master, if they make a ruling at the table, or if the sponsor makes a ruling about the game, or even about membership in the club, their ruling is final. We will not try to make anything as a knee-jerk response, but we will try to make sure that we are giving a fair response. But that's fair to all involved. So, again, don't bring up adult topics. Politics, sexuality, sexual things, do not bring them up. You will be asked to leave the group if you get 3 strikes, or if you do not respect other players and there's personal space, then you will be just asked to leave the group, period. And you will only get one offense at that. So that's what we have, and that's what things are going to be. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for being ACEs, for being ACErs. And again, I love you, and I enjoy doing what I'm doing with you. Let's game for good.